Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Wrong.
The podcast. Seriously Wrong, the podcast. I am Aaron, one co-host, and that is Sean, two co-host. One co-host, two co-host, blue co-host. I was trying to think of some Susian schmoo co-host.
You know, the redfish, bluefish? My infant daughter loves redfish, bluefish. She'll always laugh, even though she's like 2 months old. She will always laugh at the page where the man's feet is sticking out of the bottom of the bed and he looks upset because he's too tall for his bed. For some reason,
it's been a while since I read it. I'd have to see that. You have to
check
page,
it out. Yeah. It's hilarious. But speaking of children's books,
yeah, have you started reading to her yet from 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson?
I'm waiting until they're a little older so she can really
that makes sense.
Grasp these important life lessons.
You want to wait until at least 3 years old, I would say. Maybe 2.
I'll introduce her to it when we're entering. You know, children go through a phase where they want to debunk things. They want to debunk pseudoscientific applications into politics and critique the bizarreness of the structure of. So we're doing we're talking about 12 Rules for Life, folks. The 2018 Jordan Peterson classic.
When he first came out, I listened to a lot of his classroom lectures and I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. I get it was just this hierarchical ideology. He didn't reference it as much back then in the classroom ones as he does now constantly all the time. But I was like, that's weird. But I get there's interesting psychological things he's saying. I understand why people like him. I kind of like him, but the more you're exposed to him, especially in the political sphere, is oh, geez.
Well, he's been on this trajectory, too, where he switched to an all-meat diet. He, according to his description, stayed up awake for a month straight because he drank some apple cider. Yeah. And then he was awake for a month in a state that was something approximating pure terror.
Got addicted to benzos, ended up in Russia unconscious for a month, or I don't know. there's a lot of story there.
He now works for, one of the largest conservative media companies, sort of hard conservative media companies, the Daily Wire, where he does rambling supervillain style monologues and
conversations with pseudo experts on various topics while tweeting up a storm about the most unhinged shit you can imagine. That's his job now.
He retweeted something that showed it was a fetish video of a machine that is sexually milking men, and someone attributed it to the Communist Party in China, and he retweeted it with some solemn comment about retweeted this milking fetish porn.
Yeah, there's a lot of conservative hoaxes online, and I feel like he retweets so many of them. I don't want to say all of them because obviously that's not true, but it feels like all of them to me.
He's been retweeting Onion type articles recently a lot too, and being Justin Trudeau, what are you doing? And it's some Dunning-Kruger Times or some third-rate Onion website.
Yes, I think conservatives do all the time too, where I don't know if he's ever said this, but I get this vibe from it where by not publicly taking it back, even when people point it out, he's just well, if I couldn't tell the difference between this and the truth and what's actually happening, what does that say about what's actually happening? It's nothing. It's just saying that you people have done this to yourself so many times, got mad at things you made up so many times that you have lost connection with reality.
So yeah, Jordan Peterson, old friend of the show, someone that we've always, someone that we've critiqued and talked about a few times. We thought that we'd go through
the 12 Rules and
his book, this best-selling book, 12 Rules. Let's just get into it. This is a self-help book. It's called An Antidote to Chaos.
Yes,
but it's interesting. It sort of blends some Taoist ideas, a lot of Christian ideas, evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, I think he's influenced by Joseph Campbell. If not Joseph Campbell directly, that sort of vein of we can bring together all mythologies. They're all pointing at this essential truth. But at the same time, he thinks that Western philosophy and the Western tradition has gotten it like more right than every other philosophy, and that Christianity in particular is like the best. It's like figured something out on a very deep level. So he pulls in these other examples from Taoism and this and that, but it always ends up coming back to like a Christian mysticism type vibe.
Yeah, often defenders of Jordan Peterson will be like, "That's not what he was saying. You're missing out the context and stuff." So in that vibe, we're going to try to be very fair-minded with our evaluation.
Yeah,
I'm not looking for cheap dunks here. If I get something wrong, I hope that someone corrects me, and we'll actually give you a special sticker if you catch us being wrong on any new episode.
I'm not going to say that I won't go for any cheap dunks, because sometimes it's just fun. I feel like even some of the Twitter stuff he's kind of dunking on himself with the milking machine thing, but I want to address the points fairly. I feel like I have a pretty decent understanding of his worldview, because as I said, I listened to a lot of his talks. So yeah, hopefully I'll do pretty good. Can't say I'll be perfect, but yeah, if we get something wrong, let us know.
Yeah, when it comes to dunks, I'll try to make them accurate and not misrepresentations.
Right.
Not playing on, the braying crowd of anti-Jordan Peterson haters who are ready to believe any sort of negative thing against him, which so unfairly maligns him.
But yeah, so talking about this book, I feel like if you've ever heard Jordan Peterson talk for an extended amount of time, you'll get a pretty good idea of like the structure of this book in general, which is that he'll say something as like a headline, and then he'll talk for a long time going off on different tangents or and sometimes he kind of brings it together, or sometimes you can understand the through line. Sometimes it's really difficult to make it out. If you're expecting a linear argument of like, if A, then B, then C, then if C, then D, blah, 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 and pulling all these things together, that's not what you get here. That's not how this book is structured.
If you like a chapter title that straightforwardly corresponds to the contents of that chapter, then this isn't the book for you. There's definitely moments, and you can definitely trace it and think maybe but a lot of it is him just putting the stuff he wants to say in between the parts that relate to the heading of the chapter.
Right.
It actually made me think, like, as a writer, I'm like, can you get away with this? You can just really just like, and this, and this, and this.
People definitely point it out, but you can publish it if someone will publish it. Yeah.
I knew a guy named Jimmy, and we used to always go fishing. Unfortunately, he became deadly addicted to cannabis. Stalin and Pol Pot show that we need to individually focus on cleaning our rooms, and there's evidence that chickens will peck each other's eyes out, and that's why you should always be a good friend. The first rule for life is stand up straight with your shoulders back, which I thought was good posture advice, but Aaron corrected me. That's actually bad posture advice.
Yeah, well, like technically, if you look at people with good posture, they'll generally be standing relatively straight. Like the spine is never like straight, and your shoulders will be back. You won't be hunched over. So like in a sense, it's good advice. But
rule number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. So yeah.
Okay, so this is when I start getting into the ones where like just the bald-faced reading of the rule starts to sound really like, that's weird.
Yeah, let's think about what it would mean to not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. So the spectrum of everything that people could dislike.
Okay, my steel man of the point is that obviously to some extent parents have to set limits for children and let them know that certain things are not acceptable. Like if your toddler who just learned how to use the potty sees all the toilets at Home Depot and thinks he can use them, you have to stop that and just be like, no, that's like really like a socially, like you have to rein your children. He talks a lot about children being tyrants and parents who are tyrannized by their children and would do anything for them, and they're just these like devoted, like overly like codependent parents who are just people pleasing, but towards their children, like doing any like little whim their children has. The feminist mother who would never make a sandwich for her husband will gladly do it for her son who's playing a video game, is one example he throws out there. To some extent, you could be a parent who enables bad behavior in your children because you're afraid of setting limits. That's my steel man. But he is mostly talking about like It's so much of like what we've talked about in like Papa and Boy, and just this idea of like creating this inherently clashing relationship between parents and children, where like if you don't tyrannize them, they'll tyrannize you, and like you have to be a benevolent dictator to them, and like this hierarchy is natural, and like it's not a relationship of like mutuality. It's a relationship of, it's not even just a relationship of like pedagogy, of like teaching your children how to be in the world. It's one of enforcement.
Yeah, he specifically endorses, actually, in his like sort of father-son system stuff, he's telling these stories of like, these are the ego games I had to play with my child in order to defeat them.
Yeah, how he like dominates them in the realm of ideas and stuff.
Just dominated my child in a game of wit again. He was trying to dominate me, but I defeated him.
All right, now listen up, child. This is your father speaking.
Papa, what happened to you? You're so domineering.
Now listen up, you little twerp. I can tell you right now, you're acting like a little Stalin in a death camp, killing millions of people.
I don't care, Papa. I want chocolate, and I'll never relent.
You will not dominate me. Perhaps I'll challenge you to a game of wits. Enter into my labyrinth of puzzles, and I'll outwit you, my tiny baby, and defeat you.
And that was a teaser for the latest episode of the Seriously Wrong podcast about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. If you want to hear the full episode, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/seriouslywrong, and sign up for $6 a month. You'll get access to our entire archive, all the bonus episodes, and episodes a day or two early. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.